got my mojo working, babe. And I'm gonna try it on you.
Are we live?
We are.
Okay, good. But the intro is a little suffering or something.
Well, what happens is every time I touch the volume, it skips around levels.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't want to let me have control like it was a dial or something. And like I don't know. I haven't been able to get it so that
I think it's the Curtis computer curse.
something.
I'm pretty sure.
It's really strange on the volume there because it's like a toaster. You move the switch like 1 micron and it burns the shit out of your toast,
Yeah,
You put it back the other micron the other direction and you get back out bread,
Yeah.
It's
Warm bread, but not.
That's right. I don't know what kind of engineers are building toasters these days, but it's the same guy who's doing the volume here apparently on the YouTube control.
Well, anyway, we're back after a weekend hiatus. It's Jimmy Doane Show. Welcome back. We took the weekend off because we had a game.
Yeah.
Which we stomped.
Because it was the weekend.
It was the weekend. And then yesterday we had some other conflicting items that came up around the 4 o'clock hour. So
right.
Now we're back and ready to crank up for another week or so.
Mm-hmm.
I have an update before we get to the meat.
An update.
Yeah, this is an update. Remember, the last time we had we were talking about the money, the $38 billion over 10 years that's going to Israel.
Okay, yeah.
Primarily, they are supposed to purchase our F-35A Lightning II Joint Strike Fighter.
Which is nice.
The most advanced flying thing you can imagine. And do you have a picture of it?
I do. It's right behind you.
Okay, well, I got another picture.
Oh, that one's flying, yeah.
This is a flying one, okay. What's interesting, of course, is the headline on this. This is the update headline from 3 days ago when everybody was so happy about us selling the F-35s to Israel. Is U.S. Air Force grounds F-55 matters over cooling line problems. And it goes on here. U.S. Air Force has grounded the Lockheed Martin F-35 strike after discovering peeling and crumbling insulation in avionics cooling lines inside the fuel tanks. The disclosure was made less than 2 months after the Air Force announced an initial squadron of the F-35As who were ready for combat. And now, of course, marking a major milestone for the almost $380 billion program. Now think about it.
Ready for compost?
Ready for compost. $380 billion, and of course we gave 1/10 of that to Israel to buy these obviously defective. And in fact, there are people that are saying it'll never fly. It'll never fly reliably. There are people that have looked at the drawings and said, they out-complexed themselves on this one.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So anyway,
it slices, it dices.
Well, yeah, right.
It chops.
But it's interesting that the recall rate approaches the Samsung, Note 7 or whatever.
Oh yeah, it bursts into flames all on its own.
Well, not quite, but I mean
it shoots itself down.
Yeah. It was not immediately known if more serious problems could arise. Yeah, well, duh. But I just think they're developing plans now to fix the problem. So Israel might have to wait a couple of decades for their F-35s and who knows what. So that's interesting. That's an update.
Okay.
Now another little one of the things that's been totally I don't think we have a picture of this, but one thing that's been totally in the news 24/7 since Saturday night. Here it is Monday. Has been the bombing.
Oh right.
In Chelsea,
right.
In New York City, named after Chelsea
Clinton,
of course. Blowed up. Apparently there were some 24 more people injured. I don't think anybody was killed.
Yeah.
Although this morning they got the guy.
Yeah.
He's a naturalized citizen born in Armenia or someplace.
Okay.
And but I think it wasn't his like the Boston bomber in a pot with pressure pot or whatever you want to call it. Pressure cooker, yeah.
Flip phone fuse,
right. Blowed up. And there was 2 or 3 others around the country
Right.
That people are wondering, is this a multi-terrorist attack or whatever? And,
The stabbing guy.
Stabbing in Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
The 5K Marine run where one of the pipe bombs went off early, and then they found 2 more there. And are these all real? Well, I don't know what it is, but the thing about it, what I care about on this, not about all the pundits, but traumatized families caught up in the New York bomb blast have accused Uber of cashing in by doubling their prices to get people home.
Ooh, gouging them.
Gouging them. Well, you think about it for a second. That's what you do.
Of course.
There's nothing wrong with that. That is exactly. If you want to.
Are you bleeding? That'll be double.
Yeah, double. No, exactly. And why do people think that this it's a kind of a price control thing? This is what happens.
Yeah.
Because here let's say you run out of milk, but somebody's got some milk, and he says, "Yeah, Ma, it's going to cost you 3 times the regular price. If you want it that
Arrest him, beat him with the stick.
Right, exactly, and take it, and then you
Right.
get no more." No, I mean, it's stunning to me how people don't realize that this the what they call it, positional pricing or
Timing is part of the price.
Profit, yeah, and distance also. I mean,
There's convenience store. There's a reason they get to charge twice as much.
because it's convenient.
Exactly.
And the same thing is that the Uber people, I would imagine that if you'd been, had your Uber car out on Long Island, that you wouldn't be charging that kind of money for the bomb blast in New York, because it would cost, how much would it cost you to get there? I mean, you're not going to go brave all that stuff to get. So it's the people that are right there that have a little sudden windfall, and they're supposed to. It clears the people out who really want to ride. And the rest of the people, you can complain, but you can't do a price.
You think about that. Just what you just said. The market. There's a certain amount of Uber traffic at this time of day. Okay, the bombs go off. Now there's some people bleeding. They really need some Uber rides. Okay. Now, if they didn't raise their prices, then Joe Schmo, who's going out that night with his buddies, calls up Uber and says, "I'd like an Uber ride," and the guy's like, I can go pick up Joe Schmo and his buddies and take him to the club, or I can go pick up some bleeding people and take them to the hospital, and same price, and I can go to the danger zone, and that's right. But or I mean, there has to be a mechanism for how the person makes their decision.
The price mechanism is the most perfect mechanism ever devised. If you can't do pricing, you're in subsistence. You just
supply and demand dictates that everybody would go pick up the people who are in the non-danger zone,
right?
And then there would be no rides for the bleeding people.
This is again a classic. This is what happened, for instance, and they never learn. They never. Now I will say this: that Uber in New York City or whatever did not clamp down on this
yet.
Well, the bombs are all gone now.
So retroactive clampdown, man.
Yeah. Well, that'll be interesting because the Uber drivers already spent the money or whatever. Yeah.
They can still go to jail.
Well, it's interesting because to me, when the history shows us what happens I remember, for instance, during the first oil embargo in the 70s, and they weren't allowed to raise prices. Well, the lines were down the road. There was like Venezuela asking for food, for God's sakes.
Right.
The instant that I forget who it was, maybe it was Carter came in or Reagan or something, lifted everything. Boom, boom. Suddenly, that day, the lines literally disappeared. Because what was happening was, and I saw this happen, it was really a hoot. There were people down, like elder couples in St. Petersburg, for instance, with their gas guzzling. This is 70s now, of course. The cars, they were lucky to get 8 miles to the gallon. And so they have the Cadillac Grand Calais or whatever the hell it is. And as soon as the little needle moves off of full, they run down there to fill it up because they're worried they won't be able to get any more. And they had all these people in line that weren't, they really weren't going to need it.
Grandma's rule was don't let the tank go below half a tank.
Oh, no. And I'm glad you brought that up because how many times did I drive her across country? And she would always peer over. She was sitting in the back seat or sitting in the side seat. She always had her eye on the gas gauge. You need to get some gas now. And I'm going, it holds like 400 miles, and after about 200, she's panicking. We might not be able to find a station.
Water in the tank.
Yeah, water in the tank. Right, that was the other thing. You can't let it get down. There's water in the tank. We'll be stranded out here in the desert. And of course, the last time not the last time, but one of the first times she went out there was like in the 30s.
Uh-huh.
And so there were few gas stations.
Yeah.
And I said, Grandma, if the car stalled out today, somebody could probably walk.
We got a cell phone.
Yeah,
we got everything.
We got everything, so that's no problem. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting that there were complaints about the market system actually working.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do?
All right, I'm ready to move on to
Okay.
the real meat du jour. Little break music there.
I got my mojo working, babe.
Okay, we're back.
Okay, we're back. Jimmy Doane Show here with Jimmy Doane and Counselor Curtis.
That's
I
me.
didn't mention you before that today is the 19th? Yeah, the 19th of September 2016.
Yeah.
And it's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon here, Eastern Time Zone.
Mm-hmm.
What caught my eye, and I was really amazed about this,
Okay.
was Obama.
Okay.
Obama urges, this is so disgusting, I just can't imagine. The President of the United States came out and urged African Americans to vote to protect his legacy. You talk about divisive. You talk about, the fact is, he won two elections. He won two, yeah, he did, 2 terms or whatever it is. And that certainly wasn't totally the African American vote. But he's come out now and said Saturday night he will take it as a personal insult if the African American community fails to turn out for the presidential election, and encouraged black voters to support Democrat Hillary Clinton. I am so stunned about this because this is probably one of the most divisive statements I've ever heard. One of the things that, George Bush, it didn't happen, of course, but a lot of times they say, I'm a uniter, not a divider, that kind of stuff. I'm for all the people. I'm the president of all Americans and blah, blah, blah. And just come out with this and say, except I have a special class of Americans I need to vote for me because we will take care of you. And of course, what's interesting, just recently, some of the black leaders, if you want to call it that, have come out and said, you've been working for us, doing all this stuff, the Civil Rights Act, 50 years, and not much changed. And it's all been, we've been 98% voting Democrats for that long, and we've still got problems. So anyway, and of course, this was his final keynote address. This was to the Congressional Black Caucus. These are the 18 or 20 or 30 members of Congress that are of the tannish variety. That is to say, they're not lily white. Mm-hmm. And so they're divided up in Congress. They consider them, they have their own special caucus. If you had a white caucus, I guess they consider the rest of the place white caucus or something like that. But they don't meet as such. They meet as the whole So they are divisive people. So anyway, but issues of importance to the black community were including justice, good schools, and ending mass incarceration. And I'm wondering, it's hardly called mass. Admitted, we hold more people in our jails, federal and state jails, than any other country. Whatever the percentage is, pretty high.
And even by numbers.
By numbers and by percentage. Okay, and the deal is that, and in fact, the vast majority are blacks, and African Americans.
Hugely disproportional to their percentage of society.
Exactly, they're like 13% of the population here, and
65%.
Something, yeah, exactly, that kind of thing. So but still, it's a million or 2 million. Out of 320 million, it's I don't know. I guess you could call it mass, but they are spread around the country. So anyway, I consider it as personal insult if the community lets us guard down, and fails to activate itself in this election. Obama said with a stern look and booming passion, you want to give me a good send-off. Go vote. Well, he's going to be sent off anyway, so I guess a good send-off is to have Hillary elected.
Well, yeah, I think what he's thinking is if a non-Democrat gets elected, that they might revoke Obamacare.
Well, no, what they're going to do is they're going to revoke voters' rights on anybody that's not white.
Yeah, right.
So that's what they're worried
Well,
about. Is the impediments to voting.
They were bummed about that ruling that took away the state's requirement that they check with Congress before adapting their voting rules.
Right.
And of course they're bummed at the thing about requiring IDs at the polls because it disproportionately affects the poor and black people.
I don't understand. Who can't get an ID these days?
Well, not only that, I can see. Yeah, I mean, it's you gotta be pretty out of it to not even have an ID. But my comment on that is every policy affects every race disproportionately. I mean, you can't name a policy. The trade on Q-tips or something is going to affect one race over the other races.
Really?
Well, yeah, because of the fact that we're divided up differently and we use different stuff. Every single policy affects every race, if you want to call them races, every
nationality or
I don't know,
but not even that.
Yeah, you can't.
Somebody that divides himself off, whatever.
Right.
A group that
right.
that self-identifies,
right.
different from other groups.
Exactly. If you like women and men, for example, if you had an embargo on footballs. That affects men disproportionately to the way it affects women.
Yeah.
So is it a sexist embargo? No. It's about footballs.
Yeah.
Everything affects everybody disproportionately. That's...
Well, this let me tell you what this boils down to, a larger picture about the market that I have talked about before, and as Mrs. Jimmy wants me to tell the story of the cereal aisle.
Right.
And when you go into the cereal aisle and you buy Cheerios, a box of Cheerios instead of a box of Wheaties, that goes down the food chain and to the farmer. The wheat farmer versus the oat farmer.
Right.
I mean, the effect. You may think that one box isn't going to make an effect, but actually everything's on the margin.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, collectively, it does. It's interesting to me. For instance, now for some reason. Apparently, Facebook has gotten in bed. I'm diverting here. I'm going to come right back.
You're going to say, where are you going?
No, I'm going to. But Facebook has somehow gotten in cahoots with the with the Cheerios people. That ad appears about every fifth thing in now when I'm scrolling through the Facebook news. Anyway, let me come back. Legacy. We got to get back to the legacy thing. The voting ID thing is, of course, one of those things that I've always complained about because. If you can't do early voting, I mean, you got a week, almost in every state. If you can't get to do something, all you have to do is call up and ask them for it. They'll mail you the ballot. I mean, it's just.
Well, as it relates to this subject, it seems to me interesting that, like you said, the president would come out and say, "Vote for me," not vote for you. That is, don't vote because it's the best thing for you. Don't vote because it's the best thing for the country. Vote because
I need my legacy
reinforced. That's right. It seems kind of like a
talk about a narcissist.
Well, it's a little selfish, I think.
You think?
Yeah. If I would be slightly embarrassed if I were darker to the standpoint of my response would be, I'll make up my own mind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I don't appreciate it, actually. Anyway, he turned quite serious when speaking about voting. He said Republicans, en masse, and of course that includes the deluded bunch or whatever. What were the other dumpster bunch of half?
Oh, the deplorables.
Deplorables, right? Okay, half of. And of course, immediately people came out and said, "No, it's all of them. It's 100%." And then they had to walk that back.
Well, they're just trying to protect Hillary.
I know, but it's really funny because
I thought it was funny that she apologized for it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because she can't take it back.
No.
I mean, we know how you feel.
Right.
I mean, you can apologize for saying it, but that doesn't make any difference.
No. Shouldn't have said it.
That's it.
Can't take it back.
It's out there.
It's out there. It's as my grandmother, my sainted grandmother used to say, once you open up the feather pillows and let them go, you ain't getting them all back. It's just end of story. You're not getting them back. So anyway, he said Republicans have actively added barriers to voting by closing polling places early in minority communities, cutting early voting, and imposing more voter ID requirements. He called the efforts a national scandal. But even if all restrictions on voting were eliminated, African Americans would still have one of the lowest voting rates, and there you have it. You know, if they said you can walk up at the day and just say, I'm here to vote. My name is Billy Job, whatever it is, and you vote. Even if anybody could walk in anytime, they still don't have the turnout that you would be expect. So anyway, so now he goes and talks about this. Is something else I saw this in the same speech. I mean, he's talking about Trump. He missed the whole civics lesson about slavery and Jim Crow. And that was lightly covered in my high school, I can tell you. But it's they glossed over it, kind of, whatever. But we've got a museum for you. Apparently, they just opened up at the Smithsonian.
Well, wasn't it the Democrats who did Jim Crow?
Yeah, but see, that's
some history there.
Yeah, some history there. Reference to next week's opening of the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We will educate him. He wants him to go look at that museum, which, of course, there's not going to. I would love to see it, I guess, because I bet you there's nothing really bad in there. In other words,
I mean, there's going to be a colored only bathroom, water fountain sign.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah, well, that's as bad as it's going to get. Maybe they'll have a.
Well, exactly. They'll have a KKK picture of somebody getting lynched, and
Anyway, Clinton gave also an address, but of course what she did was the same thing. She showered the president with praise, greatest president we've ever had, blah, blah, blah. And I love this other line. It's, quote, "It's not about golf course promotions or birth certificates. It comes down to who will fight for the forgotten, who will invest in our children, and who will really have your back at the White House," Clinton said. That is such a, I just sit there and I think, one of the very famous books that was just written by her name she's got kind of a funny last name. It's Schlaley or something like that. It was called The Forgotten Man. And that's what Roosevelt ran on, was the forgotten man. I'm going to take care of the forgotten man. And so she will fight. These people are always going to fight for the forgotten, and that has every 4 years somebody's going to do that.
Yeah.
Who will invest in our children.
Right, got it, yeah.
No spending, it's investing.
Sure.
It'll pay off, as it has for the last 60 years, paid off so generally, with the indoctrination camps that they call schools, and who will really have your back at the White House, and no, you won't. You don't care. And it was interesting that if you get a chance, go to YouTube, do a search for George Carlin. There's a 3-minute video. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, it's been going around Facebook.
It's been going around Facebook. Yeah, the 3-minute video on how they own you.
Yeah.
You are not, you don't, you get the semblance. The Congress is there just to give you an idea that you might have a choice. No, you don't. And they don't care about you. They do. And he goes on 3.5 minutes. He nails it.
Yeah. Well, I do like that thing. And it's true. It's amazing. The guy's a genius. They I feel like they do care. I feel like they just don't understand the harm that they cause when they try to do good.
Right. Well, no good deed goes unpunished. And the point is, though, they have never learned about unexpected consequences. They're always, if you have force, if you have a gun in the equation, there are going to be unexpected consequences.
Right,
and you did not legislate. You didn't figure it out. I mean, you're not that smart.
Well, but see, to deny that they can use the gun is to deny most of the government. I mean,
true. Absolutely.
Right. I understand that. We're not that paradigm shift yet, where people can really understand that, hey, look, all the people who are trying to do good in the country, if there were no government, all those people would still be here, still trying to do that good.
Right.
And with even more money.
But
we're still living under the paradigm of, if you can force someone to do good, and get away with it, then you've done good. And forget about, don't look at the force. Don't look at what you had to do to get there. The ends justify the means. You're all good because in the end, somebody got health care or an education or whatever. It doesn't matter. You destroyed a company to do
famous Frederick Bastiat, the seen and the unseen.
Right.
Yes, you built that hospital, but what else could have been done with that money if you didn't do that hospital?
Yeah, you don't know that the money that you took away from that hospital wouldn't have gone to fight global warming or something, some other cause that you believe in.
Well, what I'm saying is if it had stayed in the private sector.
That's what I mean. You tax the doctor to pay for the hospital. Maybe the doctor, had he had that extra money, would have invented a cure for cancer.
Right, exactly.
But he
You'll
didn't.
never know. Right, so that's the seen and the unseen. And that's, if you ever get a chance, you should order. It's cheap enough. I think from Mises.org you can get a copy of Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. Easy read, short book, but boy, it tells you everything.
And I just wrote another book actually called Free Public, which talks about the same kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll get a copy of that soon and have it here.
Speaking of, I'm going to digress.
Okay.
Speaking of books, we have one here.
Yes, you got another book, that actually really helps black people and talks about.
It does totally, and minorities and people that don't quite understand. Make sure they see the damn thing.
They can see
You can order it on Amazon, and it's Black and Blue Lives by Curtis Elmore, J.D. The key is that the people that work, if you want to help people that typically need help, this will help because, as you well know, a broken taillight can sink you underwater if you get stopped, and then you have to miss your job the next day.
Or sink you underground.
Yeah, or sink you underground. But mostly, a $50 fine or $100 fine for some of these people,
It's budget busting.
It's budget busting. And then the next, they go to the check cashy place or whatever it is, and they're paying 422% interest and blah, blah, blah. This is the kind of thing. What this will do is to at least tend to keep you out of that problem.
Hopefully.
Yeah,
that's what it's designed for.
I don't use hope. I don't believe hope is a business thing. I expect that it would do some real good for you.
Yeah.
And that's why you wrote it, is because it would do a real, it's a benefit to people who need it the most. And it's cheap enough, and it's one of those things. And actually, after, Mama with her 6 kids buys the book, they can all read it. They don't all have to buy another one.
Yes, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they do. No, but I'm saying
of course, pass it around.
Pass it around. That's what
it's short and easy to read.
Yeah,
and it tells you just what you need to know, how to behave in those situations. So yeah, snatch it up at Amazon.
Yeah,
it's under my name here,
Curtis Elmore.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, anyway, that was we're talking about books.
Right. Well, I want to digress on one other thing you brought up during the course of this. You talked about the birth certificate.
Right.
And this came up last week.
Oh my God.
And
yeah.
I gotta bring this up because to me this is a funny issue. And
you did a lot on it in the early days, the first time through, didn't you and Eric?
Yeah, well, not necessarily the early days, but we didn't get into it until 2 years into Obama's first term.
Okay.
I didn't pay attention to it to begin with when they first brought it up in 2008 because it just didn't seem like a big deal or anything. But when David Abercrombie got elected out in Hawaii as the governor, he was Obama's friend, and he said, I'm going to resolve this whole thing. And he went out there to Hawaii, and then all of a sudden, he did not have access.
Right.
The
governor.
Right. The governor did not have access to the birth certificate.
He walked over physically to the birth certificate repository or whatever it is. And I'd like to, how did they not let him do it?
Well, to me, that was just a huge red flag.
Yeah.
To me, there was something else going on there. So I started to look into it. And I started to uncover stuff like all of the proof that they have about him being born there is really kind of nebulous. They have like an announcement in a newspaper and that kind of stuff. But that's easy to do in Hawaii. You just call them up and say, hey, announce this, and they'll do it. Especially back in those days.
Right.
And so now, of course, eventually he published a birth certificate. Which we've got here, and I had engineer Eric, who was a Photoshop instructor, just open this document in Adobe Illustrator. And if you're a tech person at all and you go and you open this document in Adobe Illustrator, what you find is that it has all kinds of layers already in it.
Yeah. The regular birth certificate, of course, is one layer.
Yeah, it should be just an image,
Right.
one image, and instead this one has all kinds of stuff in it, and it really is suspicious. If you ask me, it's amazing, and I think eventually they'll come out and say that this thing was a fake, and that they'll explain it by saying he didn't really know where he was born. His grandma told him he was born in Hawaii, and we all believed that, or something like that. But I wanted to address one thing about this, and that is that in the news last week, they reiterated that there is a quote-unquote racial component to this, to the birther controversy, and I totally deny that. The way they say it is a racial issue is they say, if were it true, it would undermine the first black presidency, and therefore it's racist.
How about if he was lily white?
Well, exactly. Well, or how about this? What that implies, the logic of that means that any attack that you make on this president is racist.
Right. Well, and that was from day one.
Well, okay. And
I remember in 8, 9, 10, or whatever, you could not. There were so many things you couldn't say. The politically correct went off the scale as far as everything you said was racist.
Well, and this is a prime example of that, and that is to say, if we found out tomorrow that he was running a pedophile ring out of the White House or something, and somebody published it and it undermined his presidency, these people would call that racist, a racist attack, because Obama is a member of a race, and.
Of course, he actually is a member of at least 2.
Well, and from my perspective, I go back to the Mishner thing. I mean, you can divide it up any way you want to. It's not like you can't breed with somebody of this other race, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of skin tone, really. It's crazy to have all these separations because of this. But just wanted to bring that back up.
But of course, what brought that up was the Donald came out 2-3 days ago and said, yeah, he was born in this country.
Right.
And, and so the Obama comes out and instead of saying,
thank you very much,
let's move along now.
Right.
No, he made some really weird, it was an equivocal statement.
Yeah, well, what he said, that was great too. There was a very Freudian slip, if you ask me. He said, well, I was pretty sure about where I was born. Not, I know where I was born.
Right.
And he said other people were pretty sure, not like we all know or something. There's a whole category of stuff he could have said that would be unequivocal, and yet he says this stuff like, we were sure, we were pretty sure, I was kind of sure. I mean,
all you had to do is say that settles that.
Yeah, exactly.
And move on.
Yeah.
I mean, so anyway, I thought that was really interesting, but what happened along that line was a whole ton of black type people came out and pilloried Trump for saying this.
Right. Well, the attacks came out. Though, there's a group of people out there that are attacking Trump for saying literally anything. He could say no, and they would say, see, he said yes because he said no, but he kind of winked when he said it or something. I mean, they can't let anything go. And from my perspective, again, they're building up a nice wall around him so that if he ever does anything bad, who's going to come out and say it at that point?
I hadn't thought about that's right.
It's going to be really easy for him to just say.
And other people are just going to say that's Donald Trump.
Yeah.
We've seen this before. It went away, no problem.
Yeah.
So again, we're closing in though. Of course, we got I don't know how many days, 50 days or 40
Yeah.
Closing in on it, and of course, what we're waiting for is to see what the Hill does. And so anyway, this gala that they did what they said was Barack Obama said, who's dangerous about Trump, whose dangerous and divisive vision for our country will drag us backwards. Well, you know, we've already been dragged backwards for 40 years as far as I'm concerned.
It's all a matter of opinion from the standpoint of what's forward and what's backward.
Yeah. It's 2 steps forward and 1 step backward. Let me just see if I had anything else. Oh, and also this particular gala dinner honored the retiring Representative Charles Rangel of New York, who was honored for his service. Said of the GOP nominee, his hatred and his bigotry has pulled the rug off and sheet off the Republican Party so we can see what it is. And of course, that's certainly not a partisan thing to say, but what got me about that is Rangel, of all people. I mean, he was in Harlem. He represented Harlem. And the guy before him was a guy named Adam Clayton Powell, who had to run off to the Bahamas because of all the corruption that occurred. Something like that. And his junior, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. maybe, was one also up there. But that whole district has always been corrupt, and Charlie Rangel is no slouch in that department.
Wasn't he indicted for,
I think he was
sanctioned?
He was sanctioned. Yeah, the ethics committee, I think, maybe had said something to him. And it had to do, I think it might have had to do with the some holdings he had in Puerto Rico, some apartments or something like that didn't get to go, or in the Bahamas. Maybe he had some kind of income property that he would go down there and visit with and everything. But there was a bit of a scandal that kind of got swept under the rug. They're all buddies under the skin there. But the reason they couldn't do much with him is because for many years he was the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which is by and large the most powerful committee in Congress. That's the one that sets taxes, tax rates, spending, budget, all that kind of stuff. And so when if you're chairman of that committee, you've got, I mean, people balance great. So that's but again, it was all this insider stuff, and make sure, of course, that the legacy is preserved, whatever legacy that is. I think that, like as you said, it could very well be that the legacy will be somewhat polluted, later on. Well, it has been for some presidents. The legacy for a while on Grant, for instance, was one of the most corrupt administrations ever until Harding came along, and that was Teapot Dome and all that kind of stuff. These are viciously corrupt places, and so it wouldn't surprise me that something pops out here in the future, especially with social media, which they didn't have back then. Anyway, I'm just about done with that.
Okay.
You want to do one more thing? I don't even know if it matters.
Maybe so.
And I'm gonna try.
Oh, yeah, I just want to do one thing here. Yeah.
Okay.
This is the Israel rockets, Palestinian rockets. Okay. Now they should have a picture there of the 3 or 4 rockets on the back of a truck or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Got 'em.
Got them? Look at this picture. What about this picture do you think? Dan, tell me an impression that you get on this picture.
There's a truck that's carrying it.
Yeah, it's a regular old, looks like could be a Ford F-150 slightly modified as a carrier thing, or maybe a Honda or something, I don't know. But what else about the picture do you think? They're in camo with their eyeballs showing. I mean, they're in complete camo outfits. And just their eyes are showing. I'm thinking, why? What is the uniforms here are pretty decent. I mean, they got the really good stuff. And
I don't get it. What do you mean?
It just surprises me. It reminds me a little bit of when Stitch sent me a picture of the NATO command, the NORAD command center in the mountain, and they're all walking around there in camo. It's an office, for God's sakes. What are you doing in camo? And these guys, it's not like you can't see them. I mean, camo is when you're, hiding in the bushes. Okay.
Well, they're expecting something to happen.
Yeah, I know.
When I look at this picture, are those missiles really in that truck right there?
Yeah, they can be fired from there. Yeah, that's what it looks like.
What is it, like they on some kind of stick or something?
Well, it looks like they're two
sandbags or something holding
the base down. That's right. And you just light them off, and they go up that rail there. They're each on a rail. Like a railroad track.
Right.
So they can go blast off. I'm guessing they can be taken off. But let me just go through some of this just to finish up.
Yeah.
Israel's army estimates that thousands of rockets could slam into the Jewish state in any future conflagration, military forces said. total war on several fronts, destruction of essential equipment, infrastructure, heavy rocket bombardment, all form part of the scenario for the exercise, which runs from Sunday until September 21st. The drill is based on projections of the Army's Home Front Command, which estimates 15. Now here's where the math comes in. 1,500 rockets crashing into the country each day.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, they hold thousands of rockets. Let me just see if you're. Hezbollah has at least 100,000 rockets, and let's see. They said here that the still holds thousands. Let me just see here. 1,500 rockets a day, and the Hezbollah has 100,000, and only about 1 in 100 actually hits a building. But the Palestinian militants apparently have a third of that. Like they have 15,000 rockets or something. Because I'm of course wondering where they get them, which is kind of interesting, and the uniforms and everything like that. But 1,500 rockets a day, at least for the Palestinians, that's 10 days, and they're out. And even 100,000 rockets. What is that? 1,500 a day, 15,000 in 10 days. So it's I don't know, 60 or 70 days or something like that. I think if I had to round it off, and then they'd be out.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the Israel has the Iron Dome.
Mm-hmm.
So these look like big, huge numbers, but I don't think they're all that big. And
and also that doesn't that doesn't account for what would happen if they really made it. They're always launching missiles over there. Like every day, I think they launch a few over there.
Yeah, they lob a few. Yeah,
right. But if they ever hit anything decent, then Israel goes over there and bulldozes a house and gets
at least I had a picture of that, of one of the Palestinian wreckages. I mean, they have their American planes over there too that will drop the 500-pound bombs and destroy a city block.
Mm-hmm.
So
my thought is, of course, if they ever really launched a big offensive, Israel would just take care of business.
Yeah,
and like we said,
and we had the solution for them.
Well, yeah, we got that. No problem.
That was in a
Trail of Tears.
Go back to one of our previous podcasts and our vidcasts or whatever it is, and we had it all figured out.
Yeah,
could be over tomorrow. I mean, it's just that quick.
From our perspective, Israel just needs to take charge, take Jerusalem, and put the Palestinians where they can have their own little place.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting. I thought the picture was kind of interesting to me. It's just these people are all, and who took the picture? I mean, somebody can get in close enough to take the picture and then publish it. Some professional photographer. Does it say on there? Who? It says AFP photo by a guy named Saeed Khatib.
American Foreign Press?
Yeah, American Foreign Press, probably. Yeah, could very well be.
Okay.
So anyway, he's in there as a journalist, snapping pictures of these guys. They don't mind. And I don't know if Israel has any satellites up, but I would think it would be trivial to have like they did in sort of in war games, where you have as soon as there's a firing, you see a little dot on your picture, your Google Maps picture or whatever, Google Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And you could pin. It seems to me like you could pinpoint where that was.
Yeah, well, they do. That's how they know whose house to bulldoze and stuff.
I guess they could send. They could have a fleet of drones over there. I guess, watching out for what's going to be blowed off. Mm-hmm. Anyway, that's it for my Jimmy Doane show. Thank you for watching. Jimmy Doane here with Counselor Curtis. We'll see if we can make it tomorrow about 4 o'clock. We were a little late today.
Yeah.
But we're in the process of doing some more work.
We had a few upgrades today. I don't know if you guys noticed, but my signs up here are now digital. See, it blocks my hand here now. But it makes it a little bit easier to read, and we'll keep trying to get better. So
we had a couple of other things which we might cover tomorrow because it was a busy weekend.
Uh-huh.
But we'll see. So that's another reason to tune in.
All right.
Okay, thank you.